I want you to imagine a JRPG with the world even bigger than Skyrim. Give it combat that looks like absolute chaos, but is actually complex and very rewarding. Now add a story so emotional that it hits you directly in your soul. Sounds pretty sweet, right? Now imagine that nobody's ever heard of it. The game I'm talking about is called Xenoblade Chronicles, a Nintendo published epic that somehow got released with zero marketing and even less of an explanation. It was too anime for the mainstream, too weird for the casual crowd, and too damn good to be ignored in the way it was. So in today's video, we're diving Minato first into one of the most overlooked JRPGs of all time, and I'm going to show you exactly why this game deserves your attention. Nintendo might have treated this game like a side quest, but it's definitely main story material. So let's rewind the clock back to 2010, a time when the Wii was printing money. Motion controls were the hot new way to accidentally punch your TV, and everyone had at least one Mii that looked a little bit too much like themselves. While most of the world was busy playing Mario Galaxy or Twilight Princess, Nintendo quietly dropped Xenoblade Chronicles only in Japan, and then they acted like it never happened. The game didn't even make it to North America until 2012, and even then only as a GameStop exclusive. Yes, you had to physically walk into a GameStop. It was like some kind of JRPG side quest complete with the awkward NPC dialogue. Copies were so limited that most people only even heard about the game because Shulk was in Smash Bros. It wasn't until the definitive edition on Switch in 2020 that Xenoblade finally started getting the recognition that it deserved. But even then, it felt like Xenoblade was the kid who got invited to the party out of pity. Interesting enough to show up, but never the center of attention. While other Nintendo franchises get full orchestras, theme parks, and anniversary parades, Xenoblade fans are just grateful when someone pronounces Makanis correctly. And that's such a tragedy. Xenoblade Chronicles didn't get slept on because it was bad. It got slept on because it never had the marketing muscle or mainstream push it deserved. It's like if Final Fantasy X released on the Virtual Boy and then they only sold it in gas stations. But here's the thing, even if the release was a mess, the game itself was anything but, because the moment you actually start playing Xenoblade, you realize something. The world in this game is different. Let's talk about how giant the world is in this game. Xenoblade Chronicles doesn't just drop you into Fantasyland, it drops you onto the literal corpses of two dead gods, the Bionis and the Makanis, frozen mid-sword fight for all of eternity. You're not just exploring a map, you're exploring a dead titan. If that's not metal, I don't know what is. The different levels in this game are absolutely stunning. From the grassy cliffs of Gower Plains to the eerie bioluminescent swamps of Satoral Marsh, every region has its own mood, ecosystem, and musical vibe. Aerith Sea is vast and open, with the city of Alchemoth looming in the background. Valak Mountain is a frozen hellscape with one of the most haunting nighttime themes in any RPG ever. And don't even get me started on Frontier Village. It's basically a vertical Ewok utopia powered by mushrooms. This game's level design wasn't just creative, it was aesthetic. And here's the craziest part. This was a Wii game, the same console that gave us Wii Fit and shovelware carnival games. Despite all of that, Xenoblade pushed that underpowered hardware to its absolute limit. Sure, the textures were a bit fuzzy and the characters' faces were soft, like someone sculpted them out of mashed potatoes, but the sheer scale and atmosphere, that was genuinely impressive. You could see a glowing landmark way off in the distance, walk all the way there, and immediately get drop kicked by a level 90 enemy just for being curious. But this world wasn't just big for the sake of being big, it was handcrafted, varied, and shockingly beautiful, especially with how the lighting changed between day and night, giving each zone a different vibe depending on what time of day you visited. The definitive edition on Switch cleaned things up with improved textures, updated character models, and higher output resolutions. But even in its original form, the world looked better than anything that had ever been released on the Wii. Xenoblade wasn't just flexing its size, it was showing off its soul. Before we dive headfirst into the combat, we need to talk about the definitive edition, because this game got one of the biggest glow-ups in JRPG history. I played the original on my Wii back when the game first came out, but while recording this video I did a fresh playthrough of the definitive edition, and yeah, it's night and day. The original was a technical marvel for its time for sure, but let's be honest, everyone looked like they were made of wet paper towels and existential regret. Cutscenes were emotional, but also just a little bit haunted. Then came along the definitive edition for the Switch. It didn't just slap on a texture pack, it overhauled the entire look and feel. It had sharper character models, remastered environments, and a complete UI facelift. And if that wasn't enough, it includes a full bonus epilogue called Future Connected, which finally gives Melia and her drama tiara the screen time they desperately deserve. The upgrades go way beyond cosmetics. Everything just feels better. Quests are easier to track, tutorials are less cryptic, and you can finally enjoy heart-to-hearts without squinting at two mashed potato people talking in a foggy cutscene. And the British yelling is still gloriously intact, but now it's crisp, vibrant, and it feels a whole lot less like watching a masterpiece through a dirty window. So if you're wondering which version you should play, that's an easy decision. It's definitely the definitive edition, hands down. It's the same amazing game, just with the crap scraped off and a handful of modern quality of life features that make a 100+ hour JRPG feel less like a job and more like the epic journey it was always meant to be. Now let's talk about the enemy design in Xenoblade Chronicles, because it isn't content with just tossing a few palette swapped enemies at you. Oh no, this game's creature design feels like someone handed a biology textbook to an artist who hasn't slept in 4 days and then dared him to make the most intimidating monsters imaginable. You've got intimidating robots, elemental dinosaurs, and that one level 90 gorilla who guards the beginner path like it's a sacred temple. And then there are the unique monsters, the named enemies who hit harder and have larger health pools. These guys are usually way above your level and they love to aggro you from off screen like it's a prank show. They're not boss fights, but they might as well be. And just when you thought they couldn't get any more intimidating, then comes along the faced Mechon. These aren't just beefier enemies with longer health bars, there's something else entirely. The music shifts and the tone changes, and then your brain goes, oh no, this one's got a name, doesn't it? Unlike the usual enemies you fight, the faced Mechon are sleek, deadly, and unmistakably personal. They have names, they have unique designs, and they're not just tougher enemies, they're narrative weapons. You'll quickly realize they're not just there to challenge your party, they're there because the story needs them to be. Mechanically, they're tougher than your average mini-boss. They hit harder, target smarter, and often require you to exploit specific systems like breaking and toppling them before you can even deal damage. They demand accuracy, proper positioning, and Monado timing like nothing else. But it's not just the mechanics that makes these guys so eerie, it's the atmosphere. Every faced Mechon fight feels wrong in the best possible way, like you just stumbled into the boss arena that wasn't meant for you yet. And then you get to the part where one of them speaks. And in that moment, you realize you're not just fighting a monster, you're fighting a character. And that's what makes them unforgettable. You don't just remember a faced Mechon because they're difficult, you remember them because they make the fight personal. They're walking red flags in mech suits, and Xenoblade makes sure you feel every second of it. The variety, the spectacle, and the sheer chaos, it's all part of what makes Xenoblade's combat so much more than numbers and cooldowns. It starts off feeling like controlled mayhem, but then you realize it's built to support something deeper. Every mechanic, every system, and every over-leveled enemy with aggro issues feeds into the emotional core of the game. Especially when you realize you're not just fighting monsters anymore, you're fighting fate. Alright, now let's talk about the story, but don't worry, I'm not going to be unloading a truckload full of spoilers. Xenoblade Chronicles starts out simple. There's a quiet colony, a close-knit group of friends, and that classic everything is fine until it suddenly isn't moment. Then boom, disaster strikes, emotions erupt, and before you know it, you're thrown headfirst into a journey that spans the bodies of dead gods and starts asking questions like, what does it mean to have free will? Can we change fate? And if we can, should we? At the heart of the story is a war between human-like Homs, who live on the Bionis, and the mechanical Mechon, who hail from the Mechonis. On paper, it's humans versus robots, but look past the surface and it's a centuries-old ideological conflict that only gets messier the deeper you go. And right in the middle of it all, you have the Monado, a glowing blue energy sword that might be humanity's greatest weapon, or a divine migraine with delusions of grandeur. Enter our main character, Shulk, also known as that guy from Smash Bros, who discovers he can wield the Monado. But this isn't your typical anime sword. The Monado grants visions of the future, which sounds pretty cool until you realize that seeing the future doesn't mean that you can change it. And that right there is one of Xenoblade's central themes. Are we bound by destiny, or can we shape our own path? It's head-scratching philosophy turned up to 11, but it hits surprisingly hard, especially when the gameplay literally lets you try to prevent the future tragedies as they unfold. As the story progresses, the scope just keeps expanding. What starts out as a revenge mission becomes a clash of civilizations, then a war of beliefs, and eventually something incomprehensible. Without spoiling anything, I'll just say that the game evolves from sad robots and anime swords to full-blown existential crisis simulator. You'll find yourself questioning who the real villains are, what it actually means to be a human, and whether God should be allowed to micromanage reality like a toxic middle manager who thinks your trauma builds character. But what really makes Xenoblade's story hit isn't just the plot twist, it's the emotional weight behind them. Characters evolve, bonds are tested, people fall apart, people come back together. This isn't a story where everything resets and everyone gets a happy montage. It's a journey that changes its characters in meaningful ways, and you'll feel every single step. When someone falls, it hurts. When someone heals, it matters. And when someone makes a hard choice, you understand why. And remember, this game was on the Wii, a console best known for accidentally throwing your remote into the TV while playing Wii Sports. Yet somehow this game delivered a cinematic, emotional, and high-concept narrative that could stand proudly next to the best JRPGs ever made. Not bad for a game that Nintendo originally didn't even want to bring to the West until a fan campaign yelled loud enough to make it happen. I love that Xenoblade Chronicles doesn't spell everything out for you. It respects your intelligence. There are layers of lore, subtle foreshadowing, hidden documents, and cryptic NPC lines, all hinting at deeper truths. If you're paying attention, you'll catch them. If not, you'll still get emotionally annihilated, just with fewer answers. Now let's jump into the next section, the cast. One of Xenoblade's greatest strengths is its party members. They're not just anime archetypes slapped together for plot convenience, they each come with their own backstories, relationships, and motivations. You're not just traveling with them, you're watching them grow, and occasionally yell out each other's names during battle with enough volume to shatter glass. Let's start out with our main character, Shulk, the guy who always shouts, "I'm really feeling it!" He's a scientist, not a soldier, thrust into a role he doesn't want, carrying a sword he doesn't fully understand, and haunted by visions of a future he can't always prevent. His entire arc revolves around controlling our destiny versus fate, and it gets surprisingly heavy for a dude in red cargo shorts. Despite being the main character, Shulk often feels like he's holding the narrative together through sheer willpower and determination. He's thoughtful, loyal, and occasionally naive, but you can't help but root for him even when he's monologuing like he's in a Shakespeare play written by anime writers on 500 milligrams of caffeine. Then you got Rein. Rein is the tank, the muscle, the bromance. He's loud, brave, and occasionally dumber than a bag of rocks, but in the best way. But underneath all that yelling and armor, he's the emotional glue of the group. When things fall apart, Rein's the first one to try to lift everyone back up. He's also the originator of "Now it's Rein time," a phrase so iconic it should be engraved on his tombstone. He's the friend who's ride or die, even if he's not entirely sure where we're riding or why we're dying. Then we've got Fiora. This is Shulk's childhood friend and emotional anchor. Her arc is a blend of tragedy, rebirth, and some wild sci-fi body horror I won't spoil for you here. She starts off grounded and relatable, but later becomes the center of the game's biggest twist. She's got heart, she's got drive, and she's got more depth than you'd expect from someone you first meet while she's making soup. Also, and let's not pretend otherwise, Fiora is absolutely a thirst trap. That armor looks like someone googled Cyber Angel Bikini and then said, yes, put that in the game. It's pure fan service, and while you could argue that it fits the futuristic theme, let's be real, they knew exactly what they were doing. But hey, if the Monado can defy physics, so can Fiora's fashion choices. Next up is Sharla, your team's dedicated medic and long-range sniper, who trades healing wands for a rifle the size of a tank. She's a former soldier with a calm demeanor, a sense of duty, and a backstory tied to loss, survival, and protecting what's left of her home. You'd expect a character with a backstory like that to be presented with grit and dignity, but then the game said, but what if her boobs were the focus instead? Yup, Sharla, even more so than Fiora, is a certified thirst trap. The devs gave her outfits that look like someone said, what if paramedic, but also lingerie? And for some reason, she has jiggle physics that activate during cutscenes, idle animations, and probably while crafting gems. Like seriously, this armor has a cutout for her ass. It's ridiculous, but we love it anyway. It's fan service dialed to 11, and while she's a solid party member with real emotional weight, the camera treats her like she's auditioning for Xenoblade Beach Volleyball. That said, Sharla brings something unique to the table, cooldown management based on heat buildup, which is a fun twist on traditional healing roles. She's not flashy in combat, but when things go sideways, she's the one who keeps everyone alive. Just maybe don't ask her to jump, or breathe, or exist in a cutscene without the camera immediately locking onto her torso. Now we've got Dunban. Dunban is a legend, literally. He's the war hero who once wielded the Monado, now leading the team with a mix of stoic wisdom, big brother energy, and anime hair so dramatic it probably deserves its own health bar. He fights with one arm out of commission, a katana in hand, and the kind of energy that just says, I've already won, but I'm being polite about it. His arc is about overcoming loss, reclaiming purpose, and leading not just with power, but with heart. He's calm, collected, and delivers some of the game's most powerful lines, usually while casually tanking boss hits on pure vibes and confidence. And then there's Melia, the royal, the tragic intellectual, the walking symbol of deserves better. She's half high Entia, burdened by her lineage and wrapped in roughly 14 layers of political trauma and unspoken emotions. Her arc dives deep into identity, duty, and heartbreak. If you've ever been the third wheel in your own love triangle, Melia gets you. She's also a powerhouse in combat. She channels ether magic while wearing heels. She's all elegance and devastation, like if a thunderstorm went to Harvard. And even though she bottles up 98% of her feelings, when she finally cracks, it hits like a freight train made up of emotional repression. Then there's Ricky, the mascot, a fuzzy little ball of chaos who speaks in third person and somehow ends up being more emotionally stable than half the party. He's the hero of the Nopon, a proud dad with like 12 kids and a debt-dodging legend who got volunteered for the journey against his will. He's the comic relief for sure, but he's also weirdly useful. Ricky can heal, debuff, tank, blink and throw out some serious damage when you least expect it. He's the Swiss Army knife of the team. You might laugh at him early on, but by hour 40 you're like, Ricky is kinda cracked though. Every character has side quests that go deeper into their personalities. Their heart-to-hearts are sweet and sometimes awkward. They're often hilarious but give genuine insight into how the cast relates to each other. No one's there just to fill a gameplay role. They matter, which makes every story beat hit that much harder. And let's be real, part of what makes them so memorable is the British voice acting. There's just something so perfect about hearing "Behold the power of the Monado" in that thick UK accent while fighting a giant robot crab. It gives Xenoblade a unique charm that most JRPGs just don't have. In a sea of generic dubs, Xenoblade dares to scream with class. Another awesome thing is that the game doesn't just give you great characters, it lets you build real relationships between them through the affinity system. As characters fight together, complete quests, or just vibe in cutscenes, their bond grows. And this isn't just a behind-the-scenes stat. Higher affinity unlocks special heart-to-heart moments, improves battle synergy, and even changes how NPCs treat you in the towns. It's like a team-building exercise, but instead of trust falls, you're fighting robot scorpions and delivering someone's lost cabbages. Watching your party bond over time, joke with each other, or open up during heart-to-hearts adds a whole new layer to their development. It makes the world feel connected, the characters feel human, and your squad feel like a family. A loud, messy, and occasionally shirtless family, but a family nonetheless. And if building emotional bonds wasn't enough, Xenoblade Chronicles also lets you rebuild an entire city. Around the halfway point, you gain access to Colony 6, a ruined settlement you can restore from the ground up. You can recruit new settlers, gather materials, and invest in development across housing, commerce, and nature. It's basically Extreme Makeover Bionis Edition. And it's not just cosmetic fluff. The more you rebuild, the more quests open up, the better gear you unlock, and the more the world feels like it's responding to your efforts. NPCs that you meet out in the wild can move in, and their stories evolve with the colony. It makes the world feel reactive, like your actions truly matter. You're not just saving the world, you're helping people rebuild their lives. And yes, it can get a little bit grindy. Sometimes you'll spend hours hunting for rainbow zirconias or juicy brog meat, and then you start questioning your life choices. But there's a weird joy in it, the kind only JRPG fans can truly understand. It's that just one more side quest dopamine hit, that slow, satisfying feeling of watching something grow because you made it happen. So if Xenoblade Chronicles has incredible characters, a mind-bending story, gorgeous environments, and a battle system deeper than your last relationship, why does nobody talk about it? Let's start with the obvious culprit, timing. The original game launched in 2010, right as the Wii was winding down and people were trading in motion controls for HD graphics and Netflix streaming. By the time it finally reached North America in 2012, most Wii consoles had already been retired or repurposed as dust-covered Wii Sports machines. And let's not forget, this was a GameStop exclusive. Yes, you had to physically walk into a GameStop to get this game. It was like Nintendo designed a real-life side quest, low spawn rate, awkward NPC dialogue, and the reward was a game nobody else had heard of. According to sales data, it barely cleared 1 million copies globally by 2013. Compare that to the 30 million plus Wii units floating around at the time, and yeah, this game basically released into the void. Then there's the genre problem. Xenoblade is unapologetically a JRPG. It has massive runtime, tactical combat, anime cutscenes with dramatic speeches about fate, memory, and occasionally robot crabs. That's not everyone's flavor, especially in the West where even some Final Fantasy fans were like, cool, but where's the chocobo? And Nintendo? Yeah, they didn't help. Xenoblade never got the Zelda level prestige treatment. No live orchestras, no anniversary blowouts, even the definitive edition on Switch got maybe what, 2 trailers? Then it vanished under a mountain of Animal Crossing fan art and Joy-Con drift lawsuits. It also doesn't help that Xenoblade Chronicles is a commitment. This isn't a weekend binge kind of game, it's a lifestyle. It's a full-time job with side quests, emotional damage, and light mech warfare. Between gem crafting, heart-to-hearts, colony rebuilding, and unique monster name things like Groundle Beast the Relentless, it demands a lot of your time. And in a world addicted to TikToks and 30-second dopamine hits, that's a tough pitch. And finally, Xenoblade has what I like to call an identity crisis. Is it a philosophical sci-fi epic, an anime melodrama, or is it a mecha soap opera with British yelling? Yes, all of the above. Which makes it incredibly hard to pitch. Try recommending it to a friend and watch yourself sound absolutely unhinged. It's about dead gods who are also the world, and then there's this sword that sees the future and everyone's yelling in a thick Cockney accent. Cool, I'm sold. Wait, what? But maybe that's what makes it special. Xenoblade Chronicles isn't a mainstream darling, it's the quiet genius in the back of the class, building entire galaxies while everyone else is still installing Fortnite. And it doesn't need to shout, it just needs people like you to pass the word on. One confused, emotionally damaged JRPG fan at a time. So let's wrap this up. Xenoblade Chronicles is the game that beats the odds. It launched on outdated hardware, it was ignored by its own publisher, and it was buried by bad timing. And yet it still delivered one of the most emotional, ambitious, and satisfying RPG experiences of its generation. It's not just a game, it was a journey. One that asks you to question fate, fight gods, and rebuild a broken world. But now I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and tell me, what was your favorite Xenoblade moment? Which character's story hit you the hardest? And if you're new here, welcome. Hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into overlooked classics, and ring that bell like it's calling in a chain attack. And remember, destiny isn't set in stone. Unless you're level 6 and Skullfister the Eternal just aggroed you, in which case run fast.